The ocean's depths, once thought serene and silent, are now echoing with a new and terrifying reality. Marine scientists, venturing into the abyss, have stumbled upon discoveries so chilling they've sent shockwaves through the scientific community. These are monstrous creatures, otherworldly phenomena, and clues to Earth's apocalyptic past that have left experts fearing what else lies hidden in the uncharted darkness.
Starting us off today, we have Yonaguni Formation, also known as Japan's Atlantis, discovered in the 1980s just off the coast of Yonaguni Island in Japan. The formation is a massive underwater rock structure coming in at more than 50 meters, 165 feet long, and 20 meters, 65 feet wide. Some people have speculated that the monument is the lost city of Lemuria, the home of the lemurs, which is argued to be at least 5,000 years old. On the other hand, though, many scientists maintain that the structure occurred naturally, shaped only by the currents of the ocean. Personally, I just can't get behind that. I mean, this thing has steps, and the last time I checked, erosion doesn't create such sharp angles. It should be noted, however, that this thing is made out of solid rock and not bricks, so to carve it all out and to shape it into what it is today would have taken the peoples of Lemuria hundreds of years to do. So what do you guys think? Let us know. Next up, we have an ancient shipwreck in which a 15-meter, 49-foot boat was discovered, which is estimated to have sailed over 2,000 years ago for the Roman Empire. The discovery, which was made in October of 2014 off the coast of Italy, is believed to have either been a merchant ship or a military vessel. Regardless of what it was though, one thing is for sure, it must have been packed with olive oils and fine wines, as the area in which the wreck was found was absolutely littered with hundreds of terracotta pots that would have been used to store such delicacies at the time. The ship is estimated to have been an active transport vessel making its way back and forth between Rome and Carthage way back in 218 to 210 BC. Next on the list, we have a series of ancient Egyptian artifacts discovered in the area in which the Nile River flows into the Mediterranean Sea. The discovery, which was made by Frank Goriot in 2000, included 250 ancient artifacts, two of which were enormous granite sculptures, one of a pharaoh and the other of an Egyptian god, Hapi, spelled H-A-P-I, who was said to have kept the soils of Egypt fertile by annually flooding the Nile. The discovery has excited researchers as it has been linked to two sunken cities, Canopus and Thonis, which are said to have rumbled into the sea in the latter half of the 8th century after a series of natural disasters. Upon further investigation of the area, it also appears as though a canal had existed that would have connected the now underwater cities to the second largest city in the country, Alexandria. Next up, we have the Antikythera wreck, discovered on the east side of the Greek island Antikythera, which gave way to two very significant scientific, historical, and archaeological discoveries, one of which is referred to as the Antikythera mechanism, which is an ancient Greek ore used to predict the relative positions and motions of the planets and moons in order to identify events such as solar and lunar eclipses. As the artifact has been dated all the way back to somewhere around 100 BC, it is an extremely advanced piece of technology and is recognized as the very first example of an analog computer. The second rare find made at the wreck site was none other than a human skeleton. And the reason this is so incredible is because of the fact that human remains are almost never found at the site of shipwrecks, especially ones this old, due to scavengers, ocean currents, and natural decomposition, making the body disappear. Finding the 2,000-year-old skeleton buried under ocean sediment gives scientists an opportunity to push the boundaries of ancient DNA analysis and provide information about both heritage and ancient diseases. Alright guys, I'm gonna say something, but I need you to be mature, okay? Because next on the list we have an underwater temple, the remains of an ancient lost city located in Lake Titicaca. Get over it. The remains were discovered in 2000 by an international archaeological dive team along the border of Bolivia and Peru at an estimated depth of 281 meters, around 929 feet. The temple is estimated to be between 1,000 and 1,500 years old, meaning it would have existed during the time of the Tiwanaku people, before the Incan civilization was ever even formed. Found among the ruins were many golden artifacts, but perhaps the most interesting find was the long roads and terraces designed for growing crops that give archaeologists and historians some great insight into the agricultural understanding of not only the Tiwanaku people, but any person living between the year 500 and 1000 in the area. And next we have, surprise, another underwater city, specifically the underwater city of Port Royal, located in Jamaica and commonly referred to as the Sunken Pirate City. The area is known to be one of the most wicked places on Earth due to the fact that at one time it was completely overrun by pirates who pillaged the town, causing chaos, destruction, and devastation. Once considered the most important trading post in the New World, the city fell to the seas at exactly 11:43 on June 7th in 1692 due to a massive earthquake which was quickly followed by a gigantic tsunami. The city sunk in less than 2 minutes, and it is the only known sunken city in the Western Hemisphere. Next we have a 900-year-old Crusader sword recovered from the Israeli seafloor off of the coast of northern Israel in 2021, not by scientists or historians, but rather a recreational diver who decided to take a solo dip in the country's temperate waters, which I do not recommend, by the way. If you go diving, please bring a buddy. Although the iron artifact was found covered in corals and shells, its shape was a dead giveaway to Shlomi Katzin, who knew it had to be something cool. Katzin turned the item over to experts who used an advanced X-ray machine that allowed them to view the item beneath its oceanic crust. Now, if you're starting to think the thick layer of ocean sediment, corals, and shells has become a bit of a nuisance in the process of recovering, identifying, and presenting this sword, you should know that this layer is the only reason for the sword being around today, as without it, the iron would have dissolved hundreds of years ago and there would have been no sword to find. Hold on to your heads because this next one is one. A bronze one, that is. Think about it. Now think about the fact that you're thinking about it. It's a philosopher's head. Well, a statue of one. Presumably Pythagoras of Samos. And why does that name sound familiar? Well, because a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and the square root of a squared plus b squared equals c. But let me stop torturing you with math and we can get back to the square root of this discovery. The head, which was determined to have been forged during 500 BC, was discovered off the coast of Sicily in Italy, but it is said to have belonged to the Greeks. This discovery has raised many questions about how it came to be washed along the shores of the Italian region, and researchers are now keeping a close eye on the area in hopes of discovering more ancient artifacts like this one. And that brings us to New Jersey's mysterious underwater locomotive graveyard, discovered in 1985. The two engines were found at a depth of about 27.5 meters, 90 feet, and are believed to be over 100 years old. The locomotives were identified as Class 222T, which apparently is super rare, as they usually remain in train yards and are hardly ever used for transportation. So how did they go from not leaving the lot to ending up in the ocean? We have no idea, as there are zero records regarding their disappearance. Some researchers believe that they were lost at sea while being shipped from Boston to New York, perhaps due to a treacherous storm or high waves, but again, no records. Not only that, but the way in which the engines sit, one directly behind the other as if they were making their way down a railroad track, has left historians just downright confused about the discovery. And in the #1 spot, we have Queen Anne's Revenge. Some of you guys already know this, but I grew up pretty close to where the Pirates of the Caribbean was filmed, so I'm super excited for this one, as the Queen Anne once belonged to the most infamous pirate who ever lived, Blackbeard. And no, he's not just a character from the franchise. Blackbeard, whose real name was Edward Teach, lived between 1680 and 1718 and was based in none other than Port Royal. In 1717, Blackbeard got his hands on a Bristol-built ship named Concord, which he changed to none other than the Queen Anne's Revenge. Now, if you're paying attention, you'd notice that based on the dates, Blackbeard would have had possession of the vessel for a year tops. Well, it was actually less, as on November 22nd of 1718, in a drawn-out battle, Blackbeard was pew 5 times and more than 20 times. After his passing, the Queen Anne became property of Captain Thatch, under whom she met her surprisingly uneventful end, after becoming beached on an underwater sandbar near Beaufort, North Carolina, eventually sinking as the water levels rose and the sand fell away. The vessel was rediscovered November 21st of 1996, literally one day before the anniversary of Blackbeard's death, by a private research team in Beaufort Inlet. While you are able to visit the site of the wreck, if you can call it that, it's important to note that it is a working underwater archaeological site, so doing so would require 1.5 days of educational training, but I say it's worth it. Starting off our list today, we have Cuba's underwater city, the remains of a 12-acre city sitting at a depth of roughly 8,380 meters. In 2001, sonar scans off the coast of Cuba revealed that the seafloor was littered with geometric structures that could very well be the remains of a lost ancient city. And some experts even claim that using the same technology they were able to identify the presence of a pyramid as well as a large sculpture of a sphinx sitting on the ocean floor. While it might be a bit far out there, there are some people who are claiming that Cuba's underwater city might actually be the lost city of Atlantis, which in its heyday was said to have held great knowledge and power as well as a great power source. Perhaps that source sank within the city, causing the electromagnetic activity in the area to go haywire, which might explain the 40 ships and 20 airplane disappearances in the area. I mean, it could be nothing. After the initial reports documenting the find were released, there were no follow-up reports or expeditions, but on the other hand, there probably were follow-up expeditions and it's just a cover-up. Next up, we've got the shark snacker. In 2014, it was discovered that something was attacking and eating great white sharks off the coast of southwest Australia. Scientists were alerted of the strange phenomenon after the research tag of a great white suddenly and quickly dove down to 1,903 feet into the depths of the ocean. Not only that, but the temperature of the tag actually increased as it made its descent from 46 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. The only likely explanation for the fast descent paired with an increase in temperature was that the great white, the apex predator of the ocean, had been eaten by something bigger, faster, and stronger than it. Two theories emerged as to what kind of animal could have done this. One, it was an orca, also known as a killer whale, which are known to be incredibly aggressive and also twice as long and 3 times heavier than great whites, or two, that it was a much larger undiscovered shark with an appetite not far off from Dahmer's. Next up, the Devil's Sea, aka the Asian Bermuda Triangle, located in Japan's corner of the Pacific Ocean. In 2014 and 2015, 2 separate passenger planes carrying a total of over 250 people crashed over the waters of the Devil's Sea for no known reason. This prompted people to look into the history of the area, and when they did, they discovered that the disappearance of the 2 aircrafts were not an isolated incident. In fact, in the 1950s, many large vessels disappeared under mysterious circumstances in the waters as well, with 9 of those disappearances occurring in the span of just 4 years. Because of this, the Japanese government decided to send out a military ship to investigate. Whatever it found, we will never know, because it also disappeared. For whatever reason, the Devil's Sea just sucks up ships and planes down into its watery depths. Perhaps the area is a gateway to hell, as the name implies, or possibly it's electromagnetically charged, or maybe full of sea serpents, or maybe all 3. Whatever the reason, you will not catch me there. Next up, we have the submarine disappearances of 1968. Between the months of January and May, 4 submarines from different countries went missing, lost to the deep sea. The first to go down was the Israeli INS Dakar, which disappeared in January in the Mediterranean Sea along with its crew of 69 men. 2 days later, a French submarine, the Minerva, and its crew of 52 men disappeared in the same region. Later, a Soviet nuclear sub with a crew of 98 disappeared in the South Pacific, and after that, another Soviet nuclear sub sank down to the bottom of the North Atlantic Sea. In 1999, the first wreck, the INS Dakar, was found, but it is debated whether or not the sub sank after descending past its abilities or being taken out by opposing forces. The rest of the wrecks remain a complete mystery, but in 1974, the CIA did recover pieces of one of the Soviet nuclear subs, but when asked about their findings, their answers consisted solely of, "We can neither confirm nor deny." So, cover up, I guarantee it. Speaking of mysterious disappearances, we've covered subs, ships, planes, but how about the disappearance of an entire Island. Prior to the 18th century, the small island of Bermuda, I'm sorry guys, I don't know how to pronounce that. Anyways, it was widely featured on maps of the Yucatan Peninsula, which separates the Gulf of Mexico from the Caribbean Sea. However, the depiction of the island slowly started disappearing in the 1700s, with the last confirmed appearance of the island being depicted on a map created in 1921. While you might believe the existence of the island to have been a myth created by ancient cartographers, Mexico actually confirmed the existence of the island and even made 3 attempts to locate its remains in 2009. The missions were unsuccessful, but hope is still out there that one day it will be found. There are 2 main theories surrounding why the island might have disappeared in the first place. 1. Rising sea levels caused the low-lying island to sink, and 2. The CIA blew it up because the areas surrounding it were rich in oil and Americans wanted to improve their claim over the area. 2 very different theories, but I want to know which one sounds the most likely to you. We know which one sounds the most likely to me, but let me know your thoughts down below. Next up, we've got aquatic megafauna, gigantic animals that exist within the unexplored depths of the ocean. Although many marine species remain undiscovered, there are a few species of massive aquatic life that we do know of, other than whales and sharks, of course. Both the giant squid and the colossal squid come to mind. The largest giant squid ever recorded measured in to be 43 feet long and weighed in to be almost 1,000 pounds, but it's said that they can measure up to 66 feet and weigh well over 1,000 pounds. The largest recorded colossal squid ever found measured in at just under 43 feet, but weighed over 1,000 pounds at 1,091. But like the giant squid, it is believed that they can grow to be much larger. Both animals have 3 hearts, 8 arms, and 2 tentacles. The giant squid's 8 arms are covered in sharp, serrated suction cups, and the colossal squid suckers are equipped with strong, sharp hooks. Needless to say, you wouldn't want to run into either one. Considering these guys were found with only 5% of the ocean having been explored, I can only imagine what other kinds of gigantic, mysterious creatures we'll find if we keep looking. And I suggest we keep looking. Speaking of giant things in the ocean, let's talk about the Strunsay beast. In 1808, a massive aquatic animal carcass washed up on the shores of Strunsay in Scotland, measuring up to 55 feet in length, even with part of its tail missing. Originally, scientists assumed that the carcass had been that of a large shark, but upon closer inspection it became clear that whatever creature they were looking at had paw-like appendages instead of fins, and so it was decided that the animal was a new species. Since its original discovery back in the 1800s, the animal has not been seen, but maybe one day, if we look hard enough, we'll once again find the creature that likely gave way to tales of Loch Ness monsters. From monsters to aliens. It's a NASA video. We had to include at least one point paying homage to our friends from afar. I mean, I hope they're friendly. There is one distinct structure that comes to mind when you combine the topics of aliens and the deep sea, 2 of my favorite, and that is the Baltic Sea anomaly. The anomaly was originally discovered in 2011 by sonar imaging by the Sweden Oceanic diving team while they were hunting for treasure on the floor of the northern Baltic Sea. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell you that the thing looks like a UFO. The formation seen on the bottom of the seafloor is structured and purposeful, with patterns along the stair-like structures along the sides and top of the, what I'm assuming to be a spacecraft. As far as the public knows, it has only ever been explored using radar, but I have a feeling at least a few people have been down there and are either holding the truth about what they found incredibly close to their chest, or they were killed as soon as they made it back up to the surface. Either one, it's possible. Next up, we have the Jacuzzi of Despair, a deadly lake located at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. The Jacuzzi has a circumference of about 100 feet and it reaches a depth of about 12. So, how is it that there is a small body of water separated from the ocean located over 3,000 feet below the surface? Well, I'll tell you. The jacuzzi is actually something called a brine pool, a pocket of water 5 times saltier than the surrounding seawater, so dense that it refuses to mix with its surroundings. Not only that, but brine pools also create the perfect condition for methane gas and hydrogen sulfide to thrive. So although this underwater pool might look cool, anything that is unfortunate enough to enter into its divided waters will most certainly die, and that includes you and me, so let's avoid it. And finally, to finish off our list today, we have Leptocephalus giganticus, but we're just gonna call it Lep because whoever named that thing kinda sucks. I'm looking at you, Peter Henry John Castle. The Lep is an extremely rare species of eel that was discovered in 1959, which was super lucky because the species is known to regularly inhabit the deep depths and it's rarely ever seen. 2 specimens of the species have been studied, but only in their larva baby phase. And given that eel larvae are generally only 1/32nd of their adult life, the fact that one of these specimens measured in at 6 feet long is crazy. And it means it's possible that adults of the species inhabiting the deep can grow to be up to 192 feet long, which would make it the longest aquatic animal, or longest animal altogether for that matter, known to man, far surpassing the lion's mane jellyfish, which is the previous record holder should this turn out to be true. It measures in at 120 feet in length. Blue whale, just for reference, measures in at only 98 feet. Pretty wild stuff.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the RMS Republic. In 1981, researchers were on a dive when they came across the wreck of the RMS Republic. This ship was built in 1903 and it ended up being lost at sea in 1909. Since 1909, there were plenty of rumors that began swirling that said the ship may have been carrying a whole bunch of treasure. Like treasure that could perhaps be worth billions of dollars. One of the rumors was that the ship was carrying US gold coins that would have been worth a minimum of $250,000, but there's an even crazier rumor that the ship was carrying $3 million in coins as it was supposed to be a loan to Russia. Either way, this treasure has actually never been found, as it certainly wasn't with the ship when the researchers came across it. Do you guys think that there was never any treasure, or do you think that someone else found it first? In our number 9 spot today, we have this ancient battle gear. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far, because it really helps us out. These artifacts were actually found recently after a dive in 2013. Just off the coast of Sicily, archaeologists located what they believe may have been the site of the first naval battle. They found armor, weapons, helmets, and battering rams, and they were even able to date them back to around 2,000 years ago, which is so unbelievable. They believe that these artifacts are the remains of the Battle of the Agadi Islands. This was when the Romans battled against the Carthaginians for over 20 years. It is believed that around 50 ships were sunk in this time, and that is how these remains ended up there for 2 millenniums. I don't know about you guys, but it's honestly crazy to think about that stuff still being around. In our number 8 spot today, we have Dwarka. There was a time when the city of Dwarka was considered to be just a myth, so it came as quite a shock when researchers found the lost city 120 feet under the water. Testing done on the city remains has dated them back to 9,500 years ago, which could possibly place it even before the start of Egyptian and Chinese civilizations. This lost city consisted of 6 sectors that were each divided into residential and commercial areas. Apparently, the Great Flood that happened 9,000 years ago is the cause for the city to end up submerged in the ocean. It's crazy that we can look back 9,000 years ago and know things like that. The name Dwarka translates from Sanskrit to mean gateway to heaven. With the city, researchers also found construction material, pottery, beads, sculptures, and even human bones and teeth. This city had many royal palaces that were all made with crystal and silver and had emeralds as decorations. In our number 7 spot today, we have ancient medicine. Just off the coast of Tuscany, in 2013, researchers found the Relito del Pizzino, which was a shipping vessel that they were able to date back 2,000 years ago. Among the remains of the ship, they found some items that would help give them insights into what life was like for ancient Romans, and one of the most interesting items was ancient medicinal pills. Researchers believe that these pills were used as an eye medication. They contained zinc compounds, starch, iron oxide, beeswax, and some plant-based materials. This really helped give us more insights into what was considered medicine all the way back then, but I feel like there are many things we still don't know for sure. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Antikythera mechanism. I spoke about this crazy artifact in another one of my videos. In the very early 1900s, researchers found an ancient computer just off of a Greek island. This mechanism remains on display at the National Archaeological Museum of Athens because it is honestly unbelievable. This analog computer may have had a ton of uses, and researchers aren't 100% sure about all the ways it was used, but it is known to have been some sort of astronomical calculator. It was able to predict eclipses and different planetary placements. It was found 45 meters below the water in the wreck of a ship. This mechanism has been dated back to somewhere around 87 BC, and it is thought to have been created by a Greek scientist, but unfortunately after the creation of this ancient computer, the knowledge of this kind of technology was lost before it was found again. I truly wonder where we would be technologically if we had never lost that kind of information. In our number 5 spot today, we have Gondwana. This one is hard to think of as an artifact, but I most definitely think it applies for today's list. In 2011, National Geographic published an article where they said that pieces of Gondwana may have been discovered deep in the Indian Ocean. Gondwana is the ancient continent that used to exist when Australia, India, and Antarctica were all one landmass. Apparently, they found the presence of granite and sandstone, which is unusual to find on the seabed and is much more common to continents. There isn't a ton that is known about these microcontinents, but it truly is very mysterious and very fascinating. Since these pieces were from a time when dinosaurs still roamed the earth, they have even found fossils. In our number 4 spot today, we have these Stone Age artifacts. Swedish divers found artifacts that they believe may have been the remnants of Swedish people all the way back from the Stone Age. These artifacts were found in the Baltic Sea and are believed to be 11,000 years old. They were found 16 meters below the water, and their findings consisted of animal horns, flint tools, wood, and ropes. It's crazy that researchers have the ability to date these kinds of things as far back as they have with these ones. Apparently, they were also pretty well preserved when found, which is a whole other mystery to me. It may seem like a small find, but every artifact can help give us insight to what life on Earth was like all those years ago. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Bronze Age sewn boat. 2014 saw quite an interesting archaeological discovery when the researcher Gilia Boeto revealed that they had discovered a Bronze Age sewn boat. This boat was found in a cove in Croatia and has been dated to have been wrecked in 1200 BC, which is unbelievable. The boat is made out of wood that is sewn together by ropes, roots, and willow branches. It is 7 meters long and 2.5 meters high, and considering the fact that it is 3,200 years old, it certainly has held up remarkably. This boat has given us at least a small glimpse into how boats were made all the way back then. Sometimes I hear about things that really leave me in awe of the things that have gone on our Earth. It's so unbelievably cool to think about. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Yonaguni Monument. Who would have thought that hammerhead sharks could lead to the discovery of an ancient artifact? Well, not exactly, but in the sea just off of Unagani in Japan, there is a diving location that has a high population of hammerhead sharks, making it a large and popular attraction. In 1986, a diver in the area noticed some formation on the seabed that resembled a structure of some sort. This led to a team of scientists going on a dive to gather more information, and this is when the Yonaguni Monument was officially discovered. The monument is made out of sandstone and mudstone, but here's the mysterious thing. Scientists can't agree on its origins. There are some who believe that this is a natural formation, but there are some who swear that it is man-made. There are pretty reasonable arguments for both sides, and considering the fact that this thing is at least 10,000 years old, I guess it's fair to say that we may not have all the answers. In our number 1 spot today, we have Stardust. You guys, I truly don't even know what to make of this one. So apparently, 2.7 million years ago, a star exploded, and German researchers have now been able to locate pieces of it while they were drilling in the Pacific Ocean. I can't even believe that is a sentence that is true. This star was a Type 2 supernova, which means that the star had to have at least 8 times the mass of the sun, and it also ejects iron-60 during the explosion. Somehow the star fragments ended up in the Pacific Ocean to be discovered in the remains of magnetic bacteria that were feasting on the iron from the star. Scientists believe it happened all that time ago because apparently iron-60 is way too young for Earth, whatever that means. Science is so crazy sometimes, you guys.
Starting off this countdown, we had the HMS Sea Serpent. In August of 1848, the crew on the HMS Daedalus was sailing in the South Atlantic when they spotted this terrifying creature. According to the ship's captain and several members of the crew, they claimed that the monster was 60 feet in length, with 4 feet of his head raising out of the water. This massive sea beast lurked around the ship for 20 minutes before taking off. To this day, we don't know what it is that they saw. They described it as being a long snake with a dragon's head. Pretty weird and creepy, right? Well, they aren't the only ones who witnessed this too. It was spotted a second time by the American brig Daphne, and in fact, crew on board even shot at it. Scientists claim that maybe they just saw a whale. But come on, a bunch of experienced sailors would know the difference between a whale and something that's not a whale. And at number 9 today, we have the Mary Celeste. And if you guys are liking this video so far, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. To this day, the mysterious case of the Mary Celeste is considered one of the creepiest cases in nautical history. Basically, in 1872, the Mary Celeste was found abandoned in the middle of choppy waters. The crew was nowhere to be found. All the cargo on board remained untouched. Now, the lifeboats were missing, which makes people believe that the crew tried to get off the ship and flee. But why would they just abandon their ship like that? Well, we got a number of theories. 1. A sea monster got them. 2. A pirate takeover occurred. 3. They were abducted by aliens. Or 4. They consumed bad food and they all went mad. I know, it seems wild. To make matters weirder though, the crew and lifeboats were never found. No one knows what happened aboard that ship. In our 8th spot, we have the Baltic Sea anomaly. In 2011, a group of divers went out looking for treasure in the Baltic Sea, and they came across something weird. It was a 70-meter long weird object laying 300 feet below sea level. This thing has since been named the Baltic Sea Anomaly, and no one knows what the heck it is. It's just this massive steel-looking structure shaped like a disc with some weird patterns on it. Gets weirder when the divers claim their equipment randomly stopped working when they got closer to the object. There was a massive electrical interference there. So what is this thing? Honestly, we don't know, but some people think it's a glacial deposit left from thawing glaciers. Or it's part of a UFO spacecraft from one extreme to another. Could be either or, who knows.
In our number 10 spot today, we have the upsweep. We all know how little we know about the ocean, and that includes what kinds of creatures lie in it. So while this mysterious sound out of context probably wouldn't be that freaky, when put into this situation it becomes quite a bit more eerie. This sound is referred to as upsweep, and it was caught when the Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory started its sound surveillance system in August of 1991. The sound is apparently more seasonal, with its peaks in spring and fall, but it is unclear if the changing of seasons is responsible for this sound, or if it's coming from something that lurks in the ocean and remains undiscovered. Just for reference, here is a clip of that sound played at 20 times the original speed. It is possible that this sound could be coming from underwater volcanic activity, but considering the fact that this has yet to be proven, I am here to ask the question, what if it's not? In our number 9 spot today, we have Bermuda. Bermuda was an island that could be found on many maps spanning from the 16th to the 20th century, but in a 1997 survey, the island could not be located. In an extensive 2009 study, it was concluded that the island that was once labeled as Bermuda just didn't exist, which left a whole host of questions. The island was supposed to be located just off of the north coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, which is particularly important because if it did exist, its location would be integral to determining the boundaries for exploitation rights of oil in the Gulf of Mexico. So of course, when this island that's been included on many maps seemingly just doesn't exist anymore, people really began to speculate what could have happened. There are a few major theories with this one. The first is that the original observation of the island was incorrect, and then no one ever went to double check that this island existed. The next being that possible shifts in the geography of the ocean floor, along with rising sea levels, were the cause for this island to completely disappear. The third theory is the most mysterious out of them all, and this is the theory that the island was blown up by the CIA so as to expand the economic zone belonging to the United States. It certainly is not an easy thing for an island to just disappear, so it truly is quite a large mystery about what exactly happened here, and at this point it is unclear if we'll ever know for sure.
In our 7th spot, we have the 3 men. In 2007, 3 Australian men headed out on an expedition together. 3 days later, their ship was found drifting by itself in the middle of the ocean. The men were nowhere to be found. That's not all. On the ship, they found knives all over the cabin floor, as if there had been a fight and people were scrambling for weapons. What happened to these men still remains a mystery to this day. But of course, we got the theories. One is that they got into a devastating fight and they all ended up dying. Or 2, their propeller became snarled in a fishing line. One dude went to go free the line but then fell into the ocean. The second dude tried to save him and then fell in as well, and then so on with the third guy, or who even knows. Okay, we don't know for sure, that's just a theory. The only thing we do know is that this case is pretty creepy. Moving on to number 6, we have the Kraken. So it may just be that the Kraken is real, but it's not what we think it is. In fact, the legend of the Kraken was thought to have been born after a number of sailors spotted giant squids while sailing. So the Kraken might actually just be giant squids. In 1870, a giant squid washed up in New Zealand. Legend goes that it was as tall as the top of a ship's main mast, and it could easily take over a ship by wrapping its tentacles around the hull and crushing it. Is this true? Who knows? But no one believed that giant squids were real until around 2005. That's when scientists caught a photo of one. Then in 2013 they got a video of one. Now they believe there are millions of giant squids out there. The mystery here is, what beast did the sailors encounter in 1870? Was it a ginormous squid, or was it a kraken, or is a squid a kraken? Who even knows, okay? There's just so many questions out there that we need answers to. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the cursed shipwreck. Back in the early 2000s, a natural gas company was laying pipeline in the ocean when they came across a shipwreck. Nowadays, this shipwreck is considered cursed or haunted. Let me explain why. So after the shipwreck was discovered, a team was sent down there to check it out. But everything that could go wrong did. First, the exploration sub malfunctioned right as it was getting ready to explore the wreck. Then the Navy sent a research sub down there and it literally self-destructed upon entering the water. Then over the course of a couple of years, other attempts have been made to explore the ship, but those have gone wrong as well. None have been successful. So now it's believed that this ship is cursed and doesn't want anyone entering it. In our 3rd spot, we have Sylvester Butler Jr. Apparently a number of people mysteriously vanish off of cruise ships each year. Most of them have never been found. Today, let's look at the weird case of Sylvester Butler Jr. In May of 2017, Sylvester boarded a cruise ship headed to the Pacific Islands. While on board though, the crew noticed he was acting weird. He kept to himself, barely talked to anyone else, and housekeeping claimed that he never unpacked his bags. The only charge on his bill was the occasional soft drink he would order to his room. Also, every time the cruise made a stop, he never left the ship. Then somewhere between Fiji and the final port Sydney, crew noticed that he was missing. No one knows what happened to him. And the ship's CCTV footage revealed nothing. It's sad, but theory goes that Butler jumped off the ship and took his own life. Apparently he suffered from a chronic genetic kidney disease, so maybe he wanted to end his suffering, but we don't know for sure. On top of that, I believe that his body was never found. Coming in our 2nd spot today, we have the Stronsay Beast. The Stronsay Beast is the name given to a massive carcass that washed ashore on Stronsay Island on September of 1808. At first, people thought it was just the body of a shark, but this creature had paws instead of fins. So then people were hella confused. Not only that, but it was 55 feet long. But part of its tail was missing, so clearly this thing was even bigger than that. This beast was described as follows, and I quote, "Its flesh was described as being like coarse, ill-colored beef, entirely covered with fat and tallow, and without the least resemblance or affinity to fish. The skin, which was grey colored and had an elastic texture, was said to be about 2 inches thick in parts." End quote. Not only that, but its bristles glowed in the dark when wet, and the contents in its stomach were red. So what is this beast? The Natural History Society of Edinburgh believes that it is a sea serpent of some sorts. Maybe the Loch Ness Monster or its long-lost brother, who knows. And in our number 1 spot today we have the Orang Medan. So this next mystery is pretty freaking creepy, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna keep you up at night. So in 1947, 2 American ships received a distress call from the ship the Orang Medan. The SOS call was from a crew member that stated everyone on board the ship had died. Then all of a sudden his SOS ended with his last message being, "I die." When the ships arrived, they found the ship completely unharmed. The entire crew, including a dog on board, had died. Everyone had a terrified look plastered on their face. No one knows what happened to the ship.
In our number 8 spot today we have the Sarah Joe. The Sarah Joe was a fishing boat that departed from Maui in February of 1979. There were 5 crew members aboard the boat, and when they left around 10 a.m. that day, the skies were perfectly clear, but while they were out at sea, the wind began to change and they ended up encountering a horrible storm. People on shore who were rightfully worried about the crew headed to the shoreline to try and wave the boat back in, but they were unable to locate the boat at all. One of the passengers' fathers even went out on a separate boat in the middle of the storm to try and see if anything could be done or if he could at least locate the ship, but to no avail. It was presumed that all of the crew members had been lost due to the severity of the storm. The following days of course consisted of many hours of searching, but neither the ship or any of the men were located. Flash forward almost an entire decade to September of 1988, and a member of the initial search team, John Naughton, was on a wildlife expedition on a deserted atoll around 2,000 miles from Maui when he discovered a small boat and a makeshift grave. He left the site as untouched as he could and immediately contacted authorities, who were then able to confirm that the boat was the Sarah Joe and the person buried in the makeshift grave was one of the passengers who went missing all those years ago. While experts do agree that the boat could have drifted here and it would have only taken about 3 months to do so, this area was surveyed in 1985 and there was no trace of either the boat or the makeshift grave. So where would the boat and this crew member have been from the 1979 disappearance until after the 1985 survey? These are the types of questions that still remain unanswered to this day. There are of course theories, but none that cover all the mysteries this story holds. In our number 6 spot today we have the Milky Sea phenomenon. This phenomenon is certainly much more beautiful than the name would suggest, and while we kind of know what causes it, there are still many unanswered questions that surround it. The first recorded sighting of this phenomenon occurred in 1846 when Raphael Semmes, who was the captain of the CSS Alabama, spotted it and was horrified by what he was seeing. He wrote, "From the deep blue water into a patch of water so light it startled me. The whole face of nature seemed changed, and with a little stretch of the imagination, the Alabama might have been conceived to be a phantom ship lighted up by the sickly and unearthly glare of a phantom sea." This phenomenon is so bright that it can be seen from the satellites orbiting Earth, and while it looks amazing in pictures, I can only imagine how frightening it would be to see in person when little is known about why it happens. It is believed that the glow is caused by bioluminescent bacteria that grows in all oceans in our world, but in order to produce a glow like we've seen, this bacteria has to be multiplied by billions of trillions, and we don't know how or why this happens. Also, we don't know for sure if that is what is responsible for the glow, it's just our current best guess. Just for the sake of our expansive imaginations, let's say that it really is this bacteria causing the glow. Why does it come to the ocean surface? Why in such great numbers? Every time this happens, it's at unpredictable times, locations, and sizes, so basically it remains a strange but stunning ocean mystery. In our number 5 spot today we have the SS Beichimo. The SS Beichimo was built in Sweden Sunken in 1914 and it belonged to the Hudson's Bay Company. This ship was used to trade provisions for pelts in Inuit settlements along the Northwest Territories of Canada. On October 1st, 1931, the ship was ending its trading run and was packed with fur when it became trapped in pack ice. The crew decided to briefly abandon the ship and they traveled over the ice to the nearest town for shelter. Because of the location and the time, it wasn't exactly going to be simple for everyone to be rescued. On October 15th, the Hudson's Bay Company sent an aircraft to save 22 of the members, but 15 remained and began to prepare in case they needed to stay the winter. Because the ship couldn't be heated, the remaining crew members would return to the ship every few days to chip away some of the ice, but also to grab essential items from the ship. On November 24th, there was a powerful storm, and once it had cleared, the Beichimo was gone. The remaining crew assumed that it had sunk, but this is really where our mystery gets started. An Inuk hunter spotted the ship around 72 miles from the camp the remaining crew members had set up, and somehow they ended up locating it, removing the rest of the valuables, and then abandoning it for the last time because it was believed that this ship wouldn't last the rest of the winter. After the rest of the crew was finally rescued, the ship ended up being spotted around 480 miles from its previous sighting. For 40 years after, the Beichimo was frequently spotted floating in different locations, sometimes even providing people with shelter during storms, but was never once captured. In 2006, the Alaskan government began to work on a project to find the Beichimo, but since the most previous sighting, she has never been located again. While the ship is now presumed sunken, it would have been the longest sailing ghost ship of all time. Ships rarely survive for nearly as long while being unmanned, especially in the crushing icy waters. We still haven't found the wreck of this ship either, so perhaps it is still out there floating somewhere. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Cassie Nicole. The Cassie Nicole was a boat that set sail from Richmond Hill, Georgia on April 10th, 1990 with 4 people on board. During the second day aboard, one of the passengers realized that the boat was suddenly taking on water, and at this same time the pumps and radio were not working, which left them with little to no options. The crew decided it was time to board a life raft and abandon ship. After a day of floating on this life raft, one of the passengers named Nathan saw the ship's hatch cover floating by them and thought that it might be able to support him better. Once he hopped onto the cover, he ended up losing sight of the other 3 crew members. Later in the day, he saw a freighter go by multiple times and he was hoping that it had picked up the 3 crew members he had lost contact with. After 3 days of floating at sea, Nathan was finally rescued, but he received the news that the other crew members hadn't been found. Months went by with no sign of the others until a few months later when Nathan's sister, as well as the owner of the boat, began receiving strange phone calls from someone who was speaking in Spanish. The person on the other line said their name as well as the names of the missing people, and in the final phone call the stranger said, in English, "I'm bringing them home," but there has still never been a sign of them. The family of the disappeared men believe that they may be alive somewhere but are being held in a foreign country, but why? And why would someone say that they were bringing them home only to not do that? In our number 2 spot today, we have the loneliest whale. This whale has been nicknamed the loneliest whale in the world, but the truth is, we don't really know if that's true because we've never actually seen it. This whale, which we don't know if it's a male or a female or what whale species it belongs to, sings its song like no other whale does. The whale was first heard in 1989 on a hydrophone, and while the calls were most similar to that of a blue whale, there was one striking difference, and that was the frequency of the calls. This whale calls at 52 Hz, with regular blue whales calling between 10 and 40 Hz. Even fin whales are usually heard at 20 Hz, so it's just left everyone stumped as to what could be going on here. A researcher named Bill Watkins dedicated his life to trying to reveal what exactly is going on here, and while he passed away in 2004, he found that this whale was not only unusual, but totally unique. The biggest challenge is the fact that we cannot locate this whale. Their calls can be heard for hundreds of miles, and trying to find one single whale in the vastness of the ocean is next to impossible. Many people have suggested that perhaps the whale is deaf, and this is what has led to its unique song, but of course without the whale, how could we possibly know for sure? In our number 1 spot today, we have the French sailors. Yves Emmanuel Payne and Laurent Hernas were French sailors who were hired to sail a boat to its new owners. Their trip would see them departing from Annapolis, Maryland and heading to Guadalupe, but when they never arrived at their destination, searches quickly began. Unlike many of the other stories similar to this one, there were actually sightings of this ship, most of them occurring along the intercoastal waterway, which was far off from the course the ship was intended to take. Along with these sightings came the frightening news that the witnesses claimed to see a third man on the boat, which made people begin to believe that it had been hijacked, which wouldn't have been all that surprising considering the state of the art vessel they were on. Despite these sightings, the boat was never found and neither were the men. To add even more strange occurrences to this story, however, around 2 months after the disappearance, a police officer in South Carolina pulled over a speeding car. After a sort of strange encounter with those in the vehicle, it was later discovered that 2 of the 3 men in the car were the missing Yves Emmanuel and Laurent, but at this point they of course had already been released. What exactly happened here has never been fully discovered, despite this all happening in 1991. Were the sailors kidnapped? Were they part of an elaborate plan to steal the ship, despite their loved ones saying that they would never do such a thing? It all remains a mystery. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot we have the Combe Sea Star. These guys may appear to be like sweet little Peach from Finding Nemo, but they most definitely are way more terrifying and dangerous. Also sometimes referred to as the Sand Sifting Star, these guys are a sea star that is the most widespread in their genus, which is found throughout the Indo-Pacific region. These guys are bottom dwellers, which usually means if you're coming into contact with one, it's likely accidental, so it's super important to be on the lookout for them. These guys have spines on them which can obviously cause injury to the skin, and their venom is in a gelatinous form around the spiny areas. The venom they possess is a powerful neurotoxin called tetrodotoxin, and since it's the most well known of all of the marine toxins, it will definitely be one we talk about again today. This neurotoxin is a sodium channel blocker, which means that it prevents the nervous system from carrying messages, which then translates to your muscles being prevented from contracting in response to nervous stimulation. If a lethal dose of this toxin has been ingested, symptoms will likely be present within 17 minutes, and they include things like gastrointestinal symptoms, sweating, headache, tremor, paralysis, and eventual death. This is all to say, although these guys might look relatively harmless, those spikes are scarier than any of us might have thought. In our number 9 spot today we have pufferfish. These are a fish that isn't necessarily a major threat to you if you're casually swimming on by, but because they're considered a culinary delicacy, their toxicity gets a little bit more dicey if you aren't quite sure what you're doing. If prepared incorrectly, the ingestion of pufferfish can be lethal because they contain the same powerful neurotoxin, tetrodotoxin, and some certain puffers also contain saxitoxin, which is another powerful neurotoxin. This one is also a sodium channel blocker, and it acts on voltage-gated sodium channels of neurons, which then prevents normal cellular function, which then leads to paralysis. When a lethal dose of pufferfish has been ingested, first the tongue and lips will become numb, which will then be followed by dizziness and vomiting, with the whole body slowly going numb. Eventually the toxin will paralyze the diaphragm, which will stop the person who has ingested it from breathing. If someone lives longer than 24 hours after ingestion, it is likely that they will survive, although coma might last still for several days. While the exact source of where pufferfish get their toxin has been long debated, at the moment the most widely accepted answer is that it is coming from a bacteria that exists in their intestinal tract. In our number 8 spot today we have the yellow boxfish. These guys are a species of boxfish that can be found in the reefs throughout the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, as well as the southeastern Atlantic Ocean, and to be honest, they aren't necessarily the most poisonous fish on this list, but its method of poisoning can be a cause for concern. When threatened or even just stressed out, these guys release their poison, tetrodotoxin, which we all know about, but the release is less than strategic. There's essentially no aim and they just shoot it out, swim away, and hope for the best. This is kind of hilarious in theory, but unfortunately this causes a lot of accidental poisonings to both human and other fish alike. In our number 7 spot today we have water hemlock. Water hemlock is a genus of 4 species of highly poisonous plants that like to grow in wet meadows, on the banks of streams, or really any wet and marshy area. Sometimes referred to as cowbane or poison parsnip, the members of this genus contain a toxin that is called sicutoxin. This causes central nervous system stimulatory effects like seizures. The toxin is present in all parts of this plant, however it is most concentrated in the roots of it. The ingestion of this plant can be fatal in humans, and there are actually reports in medical literature that document severe poisonings and death from water hemlock as far back as 1670. Although less common, poisoning can still occur through skin contact, so this plant is surely one that is best to stay away from entirely. In our number 6 spot today we have the flower urchin. These guys are a widespread and common commonly encountered species of sea urchin from the Indo-West Pacific. They like to make their homes in coral reef and seagrass beds or rocky and sandy environments. The toxins within the flower urchin are called contractin A, which is found to interfere with the transmission of signals at nerve endings and also causes red blood cells to clump, and the other is a protein toxin called petotoxin, which can cause muscle relaxation, sedation, and anesthetic coma, and at high doses can cause convulsions and death. These urchins don't have spines or spikes to deliver their venom, and instead it is done through what is called globiferous pedicellari. These guys possess really powerful sensors, and when disturbed they snap shut and inject venom. The amount of venom is said to be directly related to their size, so if you happen to encounter one, I guess I hope it's a small one? I don't know. I just hope we can all steer clear of them entirely. In our number 5 spot today we have the button polyp. Also known as green sea mats, these guys are a zoanthid that can usually be found in the shallow reef zones of tropical regions spanning all the way from the Caribbean to southeastern Brazil, but these corals are also often recommended to new marine aquarium owners, but this isn't necessarily great because the health risks associated with owning one can often be underestimated. The most common form of poisoning from these guys is by eating contaminated seafood, but it can also come from direct contact with the skin, eyes, or by inhaling aerosols or steam vapor associated with them. These guys contain palytoxin, which is considered to be one of the most poisonous non-protein substances known, and it is extremely dangerous because it can affect every cell type in the body. Symptoms can range from flu-like symptoms to extreme severe ones, and unfortunately there's no known antidote for it, just general medical treatment and supportive care. In our number 4 spot today we have the xanthid crab. These are a family of crabs sometimes known as gorilla crabs, mud crabs, or pebble crabs, but whatever you call them, they're highly poisonous and contain toxins that cannot be destroyed by cooking. The toxins they possess are similar to the tetrodotoxin and the saxitoxin that are seen in the pufferfish, and it is thought that they are also produced by a bacteria living in symbiosis with the crab. Many members of this crab family are brightly colored, as it is said to be a warning to potential predators of the poison that lurks inside of them. The good news is that they are poisonous rather than venomous, so it can't sting or bite, but eating them can lead to death. In our number 3 spot today we have the stonefish. These guys are one of the most venomous known fish, and although they are primarily marine, some species are known to live in rivers. Most of these guys can be found in coral reefs near the tropical Pacific and Indian Oceans. The name of these fish comes from their camouflage color, which allows them to blend in with their surroundings, but unfortunately because they're so good at disguising themselves, swimmers may not notice or see them and then inadvertently step on them, which can cause a whole slew of issues. When a stonefish is disturbed, it will inject an amount of venom proportional to the amount of pressure it's feeling, and this venom is coming from the glands at the base of their needle-like dorsal fin. The sting of a stonefish is said to be extremely painful, and if left untreated, it certainly can be fatal. The poison within the venom that a stonefish possesses is a proteinaceous toxin called verrucotoxin. The symptoms of this poison include respiratory weakness, damage to the cardiovascular system, convulsions, and paralysis. Although there are many studies that have been done on this toxin, much about how it works and the exact mechanisms of it are not yet fully understood, which just places this already terrifying creature in a cloud of mystery. In our number 2 spot today we have stingrays. Stingrays are most common in coastal, tropical, and subtropical marine waters throughout the world, and they are a group of sea rays, which are a kind of fish that are actually related to sharks. There are a wide variety of stingrays, but most of them are not normally aggressive and usually only attack when provoked. Stingrays can have anywhere from 1 to 3 blades, and when contact with the spinal blade or blades is made, it causes immediate trauma to the area with a cut, swelling, and muscle cramps from the venom. The venom from a stingray contains the toxins cystatins and galactin. Galactin causes cell death in the victims, while the other one inhibits defense enzymes. This combination can lead to increased blood flow in the superficial capillaries and cell death. In our number 1 spot today we have the blue-ringed octopus. These creatures look absolutely stunning, but you should absolutely stay as far away as possible from them. Found in the waters of Australia and Japan, the blue-ringed octopus is just as dangerous as it is unbelievable. These guys can be identified by their yellowish skin that is spotted with rings of gorgeous blue and black that change colors dramatically when the animal feels threatened. Despite their relatively small size, these guys are one of the most venomous marine animals in the world. If provoked, they may bite you. The bite is said to be pretty painless, with many people not even realizing they've been bit until the respiratory depression and paralysis sets in. That's right, these are another creature that has venom locked and loaded with tetrodotoxin, but the blue-ringed octopus would put some of the other creatures on this list to shame. These guys are carrying enough venom to kill 26 adult humans within minutes. One thing I failed to mention about tetrodotoxin before is that, as of right now, there's no known antidote, so it's really a game of luck if you encounter one of these creatures. Sleep tight with that information.
Starting off this countdown, we have David Fravor. David Fravor is a US Navy commander who spoke about some pretty terrifying things that he encountered underwater while working for the Navy. So according to him, twice while recovering spent practice munitions out of the water, he spotted a weird underwater object. The first time, he saw a dark mass underwater. He described it as being a big mass that was kind of circular. He said he was certain that it wasn't a submarine. For the second sighting, he was retrieving a practice torpedo when this same weird thing sucked it down into the depths of the ocean. The torpedo was never seen again. So what was this big mass that he was seeing? In our 9th spot, we have the naval reports. After hearing David's interview, a 79-year-old woman contacted him. She said that her father was a naval officer, and when she was a child, her father showed her a telegram that stated that unidentified objects had been sighted going in and out of the water at one of their locations. The woman's father told her, and I quote, "We get these all the time, and it's always in the same area. But obviously, the Navy isn't going to release this information to the public." In our 8th spot today, we have the Sycamore Knoll. This is a weird underwater structure located close to Malibu. No one knows what it is, but it looks like a weird stadium-shaped structure, and it's located about 2,000 feet underwater. It's also massive. It's about 2.5 to 3 miles wide. It also has what appears to be pillars or columns supporting it up, and under there it looks like an entrance. One theory is that it's an underwater alien base. Crazy, I know. But a number of UFO sightings have been reported for years in that area. Some even claim to see UFOs landing in the waters in that exact area, and this was before the underwater structure was even discovered. Freaky, isn't it? What do you think it is though? Let me know in the comments below. In our 7th spot today, we have the unidentified object. Now, in case you were unaware, there's this whole theory that aliens live in underwater bases, and that's why a number of UFO sightings are by lakes, or people have seen these saucers rise up or into the lakes. Well, in 1970, biologist Ivan Sanderson published a book titled The Invisible Residence. In this book, he talked all about UFOs or USOs, unidentified submerged objects, aka UFOs that have been spotted going into the water or rising up out of it. According to this book, on April 19th, 1957, a crew member on board a Japanese fishing boat witnessed something very strange. He saw 2 metallic silvery objects descend from the sky and dive right down into the sea. He described them as being 10 meters long with no wings or anything. When the craft hit the water, it caused great waves and rocked their boat tremendously. So maybe the whole UFO, USO theory is true, and they're living underwater. Who knows? In our 6th spot today, we have the gold. Did you know that $771 trillion worth of gold lies hidden in the ocean? Yes, you heard me. Wouldn't it be nice to just be swimming along and bump into some gold and become a millionaire? Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Ocean waters around the world contain about 20 million tons of gold in them. Each liter of water would contain approximately 13 billionths of a gram of gold. So you need to collect and filter an awful lot before becoming rich. And currently, there's no cost-effective method to remove the gold from seawater and be profitable. Now, people have tried. None have been successful. One case that I want to talk about has to do with a man named Ford Jerrigan. He came up with a plan for a gold accumulator. The plan was to extract gold from the Long Island Sound using a process involving mercury and electricity treatments. In fact, people thought that it was great, and before he knew it, he had investors, and he raised about $1 million for this project. But in the end, he scammed them all and fled with the money. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the giant sea monster. Now, if you watched my video on Google Earth, then you already have seen me talk about this. If you haven't, then, well, Google Earth basically caught a giant sea beast on their satellite camera. It was spotted off the coast of Antarctica's Deception Island. And no one, even scientists, don't know what it is. It could just be a whale, but it's still unconfirmed. Theories range from it being an underwater UFO to a kraken or another sea beast that we have yet to discover. To be honest, To me, it looks like a massive squid, but what do you think it is? Let me know in the comments below. In our fourth spot, we have the UFO video. More UFOs. Now, this was a leaked video showing what appears to be a UFO diving into the ocean. The video was filmed in 2019 off the coast of San Diego. Eventually, people were demanding answers, so the Pentagon eventually came forward saying that the video was authentic and that they don't know what the object is in the video. In the video, the object flies across the screen before stopping and slowly lowering itself into the water. Apparently, this was recorded by official Navy personnel. What do you think that could be? The Pentagon has no explanation for it yet. In our third spot today, we have the plastic. The amount of plastic currently in our oceans is disgusting. Currently, 5.25 trillion macro and micro pieces of plastic are in our ocean. There's 46,000 pieces in every square mile of the ocean. Every day, around 8 million pieces of plastic make their way into our oceans. And guess what? Fish are eating them, and then we're eating these fish. So slowly, these microplastics are ending up in our bodies. But not just from fish. From bottled water, beer, honey, sea salt, and tea bags have all been exposed as microplastic carriers. We're killing marine life and ourselves, slowly but surely, and the governments are hardly addressing this issue. In our second spot, we have the nuclear waste. Bet you didn't know this, but our oceans are radioactive. Since 1952, low levels of radioactive waste have been discharged into the Irish Sea, the English Channel, and the Arctic Ocean. This radiation can enter the food chain through plankton, and then the fish eat the plankton, and then we eat the fish. In fact, radioactive cesium and plutonium have already been found in seals and porpoises. And it's getting worse. As the nuclear energy industry grows, more and more radioactive waste will be disposed of and find its way into our ground and water supply. Again, another scary thing the government doesn't address. And in our number one spot today, we have the secret underwater bases. Allegedly, the government has a number of secret underwater bases. They're just hidden from the public, so we don't know about them. We do know of one base though, and that's the naval testing facility in Lake Bayview, Idaho. The lake that it's located in is 1,200 feet deep, and it is pretty remote, so it's deep and secluded enough to run these tests. If they have one there, who's to say they don't have more? Starting off this countdown, we have the Solomon Island saucer. Over the years, there have been a number of UFO sightings near the Solomon Islands. Most witnesses experience the exact same thing. They see a UFO with strange lights rise out of the ocean and fly off into the sky. These sightings are what have led to the theory that aliens have secret bases underwater. One fisherman in the area said he saw this UFO and the lights raise out of the ocean and then fly by him. He said it got so close to him that he could feel the heat on him as it passed by. Not only that, but some people who have witnessed this ended up disappearing without a trace. So like, did the aliens come for them or something? Or what? Are they gonna come for me now? No thank you. Just don't go to Solomon Islands, okay? In our ninth spot today, we have the octopi. And I wanna say octopus is so bad, but I know it's not the proper plural, so we're going with octopi, whatever. Ancient astronaut theorists believe that octopi are some sort of version of an alien. Maybe they're related to aliens. So let me explain. So we all know that back in the day, tons of meteors crashed down on Earth. Well, they believe that the meteorites that crashed into the ocean from space actually contained some sort of organic material. Now, this either infected some sort of water species or allowed the material in the meteor to evolve into octopi. So really, octopi could just be composed of alien DNA. Now, to support this theory, they mention that both octopi and aliens are incredibly smart. On a number of occasions, octopi have pulled pranks on humans. They also have way different genomes than squids, which they're said to be closely related to. And also, they can change colors. They're just a really weird species. So what do you think? Could octopi be descendants of aliens? Maybe. Coming in at number 8, we have the Yonaguni Monument. Located in the depths of the Dragon's Triangle is this weird underwater formation, which has been given the name the Yonaguni Ruins. It's a bunch of weird structures that no one knows much about. Some say they are remnants of a lost civilization. Others believe they were created by aliens, and that they're part of a secret underwater alien base. Let's explore that theory. For starters, it's kind of odd that this monument is located in the Dragon's Triangle. This area is considered the Pacific's very own Bermuda Triangle. Over the years, a number of ships and planes have disappeared in broad daylight in calm waters in that area. Maybe this underwater monument has something to do with these disappearances. For example, in 1952, the Japanese government sent 31 individuals to go investigate this area. They all disappeared from that area without a trace, and their bodies and the ship were never found. Theory goes that this monument is being used by aliens in some way. Maybe it's interfering with our navigational equipment and causing these plane crashes and ship disappearances. Who knows? Coming in at number 7, we have Ivan Sanderson. In 1970, biologist Ivan Sanderson published a book titled The Invisible Residence. In this book, he talked all about UFOs or USOs, unidentified submerged objects, aka UFOs that have been spotted going into the water or rising up out of it. According to his book, on April 19, 1957, a crew member on board a Japanese fishing boat witnessed something very strange. He saw 2 metallic silvery objects descend from the sky and dive right down into the sea. He described them as being 10 meters long with no wings or anything. When the craft hit the water, it caused great waves and rocked their boat. This could be more proof that aliens have secret bases in the ocean. Coming in at number 6, we have the leaked UFO video. A recent leaked video from 2019 shows a UFO diving into the ocean off the coast of San Diego. And guess what? The Pentagon confirmed this video to be authentic. So basically, in this video, you can see a dark spherical object flying over the ocean. It was picked up by an infrared camera at night. The object flies back and forth across the screen before stopping and slowly lowering itself into the water. Apparently, this video was recorded by official Navy personnel. Take a look at it and see for yourself.
Took off, booking it.
Staying wind, topside, gust of 40.
What was splash?
What do you think that could be? The Pentagon has no explanation for it yet. Also, the area was then searched and no craft was ever recovered or found. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Baltic Sea anomaly. In 2011, a group of divers went out looking for treasure in the Baltic Sea. That's when they came across something weird. It was a 70-meter long weird object laying 300 feet below sea level. This thing has since been named the Baltic Sea anomaly, because no one knows what it is. It's just this massive steel-looking structure shaped like a disc with some weird patterns on it. It gets weirder when the divers claim their equipment randomly stopped working when they got closer to the object. The thing caused a massive electrical interference there. It's believed that this thing could be part of an ancient alien spacecraft. To this day, this thing still baffles scientists. They don't know what the heck it is. In our 4th spot today, we have the underwater crop circles. Underwater crop circles don't really need an explanation. They're crop circles found underwater. They're actually quite beautiful. It's just a bunch of almost perfect circles with a design found at the bottom of the sea. Scientists have said that they are made naturally by pufferfish while on a journey to find a mate. Blah, 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 okay? It's kind of weird how perfect and detailed and intricate these circles are. You decide what you want to believe. Are they made by a fish or are they made by aliens? In our 3rd spot today, we have the underwater Stonehenge. Turns out that there's a version of Stonehenge located right at the bottom of Lake Michigan. There are a bunch of random rock formations that scientists have been struggling to explain, but it's believed that they are thousands of years old. What makes it even weirder is that on one of these stones, they discovered a carving of a mastodon, a relative of an elephant that went extinct over 10,000 years ago. So they were like, maybe this structure has been here since the last ice age. So we really don't know how old they truly are, or who built them, and why. But of course, ancient astronaut theorists believe that aliens are involved in this somehow. In our 2nd spot today, we have the weird space alien creature, Alien. So it was captured in 2013 by a remotely operated vehicle. The vehicle was 3,753 below in the Indian Ocean when it saw this creature. Now the creature is quite beautiful. It looks almost like a jellyfish, but it's a creature we have never seen before. As the video goes on, we literally see it shapeshift in front of our eyes, and it starts to glow different colors. Then at the end of the video, it like disintegrates from Earth. And in our number one spot today, we have the Sycamore Knoll. The Sycamore Knoll is a weird stadium-shaped structure located about 2,000 feet underwater. It's massive. It's about 2.5 to 3 miles wide. It also has what appears to be pillars or columns supporting it. And under there, it looks like an entrance. So automatically people were like, yeah, that for sure is an entrance to an alien base. And not gonna lie, it looks like it. This base was first discovered on Google Maps and it's located close to Malibu. People have claimed to see UFOs landing in the waters in that exact area before they even knew of that underwater structure. Freaky, isn't it? To this day, scientists don't know for sure what this thing even is.
Kicking off the list at number 10, living fossils. Also referred to as crinoids, but living fossils sounds way better, definitely. These little guys went extinct 273 million years ago, or at least so we thought. We found these dudes this past year, and they're these non-skeletal corals. They're cousins to starfish and sea urchins, but I gotta admit, they don't look nearly as cool. Starfish are the coolest, they're OGs. Discovered on the Pacific Ocean floor, this type of coral will attach itself to the stem of Japanese sea lily, and then they just become one over time. Any type of ocean life that undergoes symbiosis, that creeps me right out. I don't like barnacles. I have a fear of the ocean, and I'm super glad that we're doing this list. So let's move on as I get goosebumps. Oh, I hate this. Thalassophobia, I think, is like a fear of deep water. I have that. I also have a fear of shallow water. I can't swim. Number 9, Chuck Lagoon. This lagoon was Japan's main base during the war, but come 1944, the United States launched an attack, what some deem is Japan's Pearl Harbor, where 60 ships were sunk and around 250 planes went down. So for 70 years, there's been a massive graveyard sitting in the Pacific, and it wasn't until recently where we got a good look at these haunting artifacts. A photographer by the name of Super Jolly went down and did the dirty work for us. He called this shoot one of the scariest dives he's ever done in his entire life. They described the atmosphere filled with human skulls, gas masks, and bullets as haunting. Yeah, you don't say. Nobody was expecting these artifacts to be that well preserved after all this time. That's the terrifying thing here. Photos are even still intact. You can see people's family members just sitting at the bottom. How sad is that? It's a haunting reminder of naval warfare, and also humans mostly suck. Number 8, MV Derbyshire. This ship was twice the size of the Titanic, but James Cameron didn't make a movie about it, so let me fill you in with less of a budget. MV Derbyshire was the biggest British registered merchant ship of all time to go down. That's an odd brag, but hear me out. She was assembled in 1976, but lost in 1980 en route from Canada to Japan. A Mayday distress call was never issued, and it was following proper ocean routes with weather routing companies, so they were doing all the right things. What happened? September 15th, 1980, a search began for the missing ship and crew, but 6 days later, the search was called off. Nothing was found. The ship was declared lost. The sister ship of the Derbyshire ended up sinking as well later on in 1986 due to deck cracking, so the families urged officials to search again for answers. Come 1994, the Derbyshire was found. Number 7, Garbage Island. There's a lot of treasure in the sea, but there's also lots of garbage because humans suck. Sorry. I mean, look at the top of the Pacific for the example, not even below it, but right on the surface, we have something called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It's located safely in the North Pacific subtropical gyre. There's basically 4 of these large systems, which are just massive swirling ocean currents moving warm and cool water about. They're whirlpools of garbage now. No wonder aliens don't want to come. They're like, no, this looks like let's just go to that planet. A plastic bag, for example, was found at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. We now have the deepest piece of trash. Kinda hard for Ariel to sing under the sea when she's got a plastic bag wrapped around her head. This great patch is larger than you think. It's more than twice the size of Texas. It's grown up to 60,000 square miles. Please recycle. Number 4, USS Nevada. Deemed the unsinkable ship, and for good reason, the USS Nevada was lost in 1948, and it wasn't until a year ago where she was seen again. Unsinkable ship that sunk. What's going on here? Well, during the 1941 surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, the USS Nevada was the only battleship to get away in one piece. But barely, they barely got away. It took years of repairs, but she finally returned to battle in 1944 to support the Normandy invasion. A year later, it assisted the invasions of Okinawa and Iwo Jima, and then 2 atomic bomb tests were performed, and then post-World War II, she was finally deemed too ancient for service. So the Navy used the USS Nevada as target practice, and it took 5 whole days and lots of power to finally sink it. A torpedo was the final strike. And after it sank, the Navy wasn't really sure where exactly it would end up. It was more than 15,000 feet below the surface, so it could have gone literally anywhere. Hence why we can't find anything else on this list. You get it. Cut to last year, May 2020, a joint expedition by Ocean Infinity and Search Inc., led by Dr. James Delgado, found her. Just 65 nautical miles southwest of Pearl Harbor. Took a little while, but we gotcha. Number 3. Amelia Earhart. Yeah, you heard me, Amelia Earhart. The first woman to fly across the Atlantic, was well on her way to setting even more groundbreaking records, but her plane tragically disappeared somewhere over the Pacific in 1937. It's since been a great mystery where the final resting place of Amelia Earhart is, but we may have actually found her remains back in 1940 on the Pacific island of Nikumaroro. The initial examination of these remains were reported to be that of a man. That was the general idea in 1941, but come 2018, however, we now have a different idea. Science got better, our ideas got smarter. Researcher Richard Johns took another look at these lost remains, and since those days we've learned more about Amelia Earhart. Photos have surfaced since, so now he's comparing the bone measurements to her body type, and they're actually pretty sure that that's our missing aviator. And that we had her the whole time, and we just didn't know. Number 2. The Dragon's Triangle. The Dragon's Triangle is located in the Pacific, obviously, as are most of these, and it's like the evil sister of the Bermuda Triangle, and just like that triangle, this one also takes the blame for disappearing ships and planes, and apparently UFOs are flying about. Of course. It's referred to as the Devil's Sea. These names are so scary sounding. Like, I don't know, change the names and maybe it won't be spooky anymore. Just an idea. There have been UFO sightings, magnetic anomalies, planes and ships vanish. In 1945, for example, a Mitsubishi A6M0 went missing and the pilot's distress call said the sky is opening up. Then they disappeared. 1955, a Japanese ship named the Shinyo Maru lost radio contact, and it didn't take long for the New York Times to coin the term the Devil's Sea. All these spooky triangles are ocean currents to blame, or is there something truly paranormal about the Devil's Triangle? Let us know in the comments down below. See Illuminati confirmed. And finally, number 1, crop circles. We'll finish this list off with a cute one, I guess. Although I'm arguing this is still pretty terrifying. Crop circles on the ocean floor. Aliens confirmed. They were first spotted back in 1995 off the southern coast of Japan, and for 16 years these things were blowing the minds of divers. Nobody knew where they were coming from. They would just be there one week and then gone the next. Tiny aliens or tiny pufferfish. That's right. In 2011, one of these dudes got caught in 4K, and it's one of the weirdest but most cute things I've ever seen. These male pufferfish, they try and lure in the ladies by making art. Yeah, some birds dance like crazy with their weird mouth-looking wing things. Some fish make art. I don't know. Deal with it. Animals are... The thing that baffles me, concerns me if anything, is that the pufferfish uses a shell, like he uses a tool to carve out his emotions. Check this out.
Coming in at number 10, we have globsters. What is this? I will give you a good 5 seconds to look and then you can let me know what you think it might be. Nope, the answer isn't a decomposing luck dragon. I don't think so. Anyway, like, maybe it actually is though. I kinda tricked you because nobody really knows what this is. This was found ashore in the beach town of San Antonio in the Oriental Mindoro region in May 2018, this in the Philippines. Unidentified washed up sea creatures are referred to as globsters because they're globby and blobby, I don't know. Some people think that it was a whale, but the 6-meter long object was actually covered in white hair, which, as we know, whales are not. A lot of superstitious locals thought it was a bad omen. Local resident Tam Malling said, "The big lobster is a sign of something bad coming. Please pray for us." To be honest, if I saw this monster, I'd pretty much start praying too. The less superstitious were simply complaining of the awful smell left by the dead creature. Ugh, I can only imagine. Hands up arachnophobics. I see you, I feel you. Maybe you might want to close your eyes at number 9 because we have sea spiders. Nope, 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 nope. And a second helping of no. It's seems that spiders aren't just a land thing. I thought the spiders of the sea were crabs, but I was wrong. This particular menace that has been accidentally dragged up from the ocean is the Southern Ocean giant sea spider, not to scale. He's big. He's really big. Some fun facts for you: this leggy blonde has organs in its pins. Literally. Ugh. And also, something else it literally does. Yeah, it sucks the life out of its prey through its legs. No thank you. No. I'm like, just gonna respectfully decline all sea spiders for the rest of my life. It's a choice. Also a choice at number 8, we have peanut worms. Oh my, just when I thought I swore off peanut worms forever, here they are in my video. Get out. Seriously though, I am horrified by these creatures from the deep. The peanut worm is making me feel, I don't know, I feel like uncomfortable isn't really a strong enough word. I would say deeply uncomfortable. Deeply uncomfortable. Imagine being the poor soul that pulls one of these up from the ocean. Like, seriously, that really is probably more than they bargained for and isn't really safe for work. Look at them, flopping around being worms. Do you want to see a bunch of them together? Here you go. I honestly totally get why they're called the peanut worm, but at the same time, can we think of a slightly better name for them? Do you guys want to see one moving? Right, not so bad, right? Okay, I'm absolutely not here for this. Coming into number 7, we have the pelican eel. No, thank you, no. Like, does he or does he not look like a demon alien from the planet Gulp? I'm really not here for an eel in general, but a pelican eel? Ugh. This here chappy bob is a deep sea fish rarely seen by humans, but is sometimes hauled up by deep sea fishing efforts. Imagine bringing one of these to the surface, like, ah. Some facts you need to know about this sea beastie. The last one you're actually gonna love. Firstly, it likes to whip its tail back and forth. Secondly, it can glow pink and red if it wants to. And thirdly, do you know what? I don't even really know how to explain it to you, so maybe I'm just gonna show it to you. Wait, what? What is that we are approaching here? Let's take a closer look. Oh, it can inflate. Cool. Great, said no one ever. Coming into number 6, we have this barnacle monster. I have to say, barnacles are my absolute least favourite. You know in Pirates of the Caribbean when you meet Barnacle Bill? That's my literal nightmare monster. A barnacle on my face. Ah! So in the spirit of how much barnacles turn my stomach, I want to show you this utterly bizarre monster that washed up on a beach in New Zealand. News networks were dubbing this creature a monster, and it is easy to see why. So this is a boatload of gooseneck barnacles, and they're attached to something. They're long-necked barnacles, and they certainly look weird. Do you want to see them up close? Okay, so we know the explanation. It doesn't mean the thing that washed up wasn't any less scary because bleh. Ho-ho! Coming into number 4, we have the anglerfish. Nope. Do you want to see a lovely picture to brighten up your day? Of course you do! Let me show you. Wait, what? No! That happy fisherman has dragged up an anglerfish from the ocean, and these are, gross, right? Horrifying. Do you want to see what it looks like when it hasn't been bested by a pesky human? You got it. Here it is. And another? Lovely. That is a female. But do you want to know what happens with the males? Do you want to know how they breed? Basically, the males are much smaller and they're parasites. They attach themselves to the back of the female and then they impregnate her without her noticing. Aha! Once he is attached to her, he basically dissolves into her body. Nature. Ain't it beautiful? Back with the unexplainable at number 3, we have the Montauk Monster and the Brooklyn Bridge Monster, because they might actually be the same type of dead thing. A grotesque dead animal washed up on the shore in Montauk in the American state of New York in 2008. Now the monster looks kind of like a cooked dog with a beak. It had cryptozoologists going absolutely wild. Now a similar unexplained creature washed ashore on the Manhattan-facing side of Brooklyn in 2012. The pictures are kind of awful, so maybe close your eyes for a second. That's really sad. I feel really sad. Another unexplained washed up monster at at number 2. What could this be? It's definitely more fishy than our number 3. Like literally, what is this? This terrifying fish was dragged up from the ocean by a Russian fisherman in 2017. It became a social media sensation. Roman Fedorstov has become Instagram's most famous fisherman. What an accolade. He has over 510,000 followers, which is crazy. Although none of them can tell you what this creature is. It's terrifying, that's all I can say. Also terrifying are all of the other creatures that he has papped and snapped and uploaded to the gram. None such as terrifying as the blobfish though at number 1. Mr. Blobfish, he scares me, but actually, I think I love him. Look at his repugnant, creepy face, but yet there really is something weirdly cute about it, and I think that's what scares me the most. These are a deep sea fish that live off the waters of Australia, Tasmania, and New Zealand. To me, the blobfish kind of looks like a bladder personified. It looks like it acts. Basically, it floats around with little energy and effort, swallowing things that pass by. It's like the Mondays of the ocean. He just looks really glum. I get it. It'll get better, blobfish. Can you imagine being the fisherman that brought up the blobfish for the first time, honestly? It has been voted the ugliest creature in the world, but honestly, I actually think that I'm somewhat here for it. I mean, I'd never want to touch one, but I do love that they make blobfish plushies. Seriously, look at it. Look at the sushi one! I think I actually might need it. I'm so confused.
Coming in at number 8, we have Carol A. Deering, aka the ghost ship of the Outer Banks. So on January 31st, 1921, the Carol A. Deering was found abandoned off of Cape Hatteras in North Carolina. The crew was nowhere to be found. On top of that, tons of stuff was missing from the ship, including the crew's personal belongings, life rafts, logbooks, and navigational equipment. To this day, no one knows what happened to the crew aboard the ship. But of course, we got some theories. Theory 1 is that a mutiny occurred. Theory 2 is that they were ransacked by pirates. Theory 3 is that they were taking part in rum running. People stole the ship to use for the rum running, and when they were done, they just abandoned the ship and left it there. But like I said before, we don't know for sure. In our 7th spot, we have the electronic fog. Okay, this one is pretty weird, not gonna lie. So on December 4th, 1970, a man named Rob McGregor was flying over the Bermuda Triangle when he was met by this weird tunnel-shaped vortex. He entered it, and apparently his wings sounded like they were scraping along metal. All of the electronic and magnetic navigational instruments malfunctioned. When he looked up, all he saw was a dull gray fog. Also, there were strange clouds forming behind the airplane. They were only in the clouds for a couple of minutes, but claimed that they traveled for 40 minutes. When they got out of the fog, they were over Miami Beach, a flight that would have taken 75 minutes. He believes that this weird fog is what has caused other planes and boats and passengers to disappear in the Bermuda Triangle. So what is this weird electronic fog that he encountered while over the ocean? That's something I want to know. In our 6th spot today, we have the time travel. Legend goes that one day 3 ships were traveling through the Bermuda Triangle. Everything was going fine until they encountered a mysterious fog. When they emerged through the other end of the fog, there were only 2 ships. The other ship was way ahead of them. The crew aboard the ship claimed that the fog transported them back in time several years. There, they saw a bunch of different boats and passengers also sailing. Then they approached the same fog and they got transported back to the current day. Isn't that weird? Was this the same fog the pilot encountered? Like, what is going on in the ocean? We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the disappearance of Keith Davis. Now, this case is certainly going to keep you up at night, so just a little warning. So in 2015, Keith Davis, a fisheries observer, headed out to sea with his crew. His job was to monitor all the catches and collect data on it. But about a month later, Keith disappeared off the ship in the middle of the day, in broad daylight. He has never been found. On top of that, the weather that day was calm, and he was an experienced observer, so it's not like he just fell overboard by accident. So what happened to him? Well, theory goes that he knew too much, so someone got rid of him. When police searched his email, they found photographic evidence of illegal things happening on board these ships, like they were allegedly smuggling people. He was also keeping track of a number of rule violations. Not only that, a year before his disappearance, Keith sent a mysterious email to his friends. In the email was a video of 4 men being shot to death while holding onto debris in the ocean. So theory goes that Keith was killed for knowing way too much. But still, to this day, we don't know exactly what happened to him. Coming in at number 4, we have the Ellen Austin. In 1880, a ship named the Ellen Austin set sail to New York from Liverpool. During their travels, the crew spotted a ship floating near the Bermuda Triangle. They approached it and found that nothing was wrong with the ship, but all the crew on board were missing. So they decided to put some of their own crew members on board this mysterious ship and have it come with them. But during the trip, the 2 ships got separated. They were separated for a couple of days before the Ellen Austin spotted the ship once again. However, all their crew on board vanished. There was no trace of them. Now, the story goes on saying that they placed another set of crew members aboard the ship, and once again, the exact same thing happened to those men. They disappeared off the ship without a trace. But that account hasn't been confirmed. Either way, this mystery gave birth to an urban legend. Basically, a cursed ghost ship lurks the waters near the Bermuda Triangle. Those who hop on board will mysteriously disappear without a trace. In our 3rd spot, we have the disappearing aircrafts. In 1945, 5 torpedo bomber planes took off for a 3-hour exercise. But while flying over the Atlantic Ocean, they disappeared without a trace. It all started when the flight's leader noticed that his compass wasn't working properly. So he was worried that they were flying in the wrong direction. He instructed the planes to then change paths, thinking that they were going to then be heading towards Florida. But in reality, they were just traveling deeper into the Atlantic. As the planes started getting close to the Bermuda Triangle, their signals began to fail. The last few things the pilots ever said were, and I quote, "Everything looks strange, even the ocean. And it looks like we are entering white water. We're completely lost." Then the communication was cut completely and they were never heard from again. In our 2nd spot, we have the severed feet. What would you do if you were out on a nice stroll on the beach when you came across someone's missing arm or foot? Believe it or not, this has happened a number of times. Since 2007, severed human feet have been washing up on the shore of the Pacific Northwest. The first was a right foot still inside of a size 12 Adidas shoe. The second was again a right foot, size 12, but it was in a Reebok shoe. Since then, 15 more feet have washed up on shore. To this day, we don't know who they belong to or what happened to them, or even if they were victims of the same killer. It's really freaking creepy if you ask me. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Witchcraft. This is the name of a boat that set sail on December 22nd, 1967. On board was the captain, Dan Burrack, and his friend, Patrick Horgan. The 2 headed off to get a good look at Miami's Christmas lights. However, after traveling just 1 mile out, they contacted the Coast Guard, saying that the boat had hit something, but there was no damage. Dan seemed to be calm on the call to the Coast Guard and said they just needed a tow to the shore. So they figured that the boat's propeller was just damaged or something like that. The Coast Guard immediately went out, but when he arrived at the spot the boat was said to be, no one was there. It took him only 19 minutes to get there, yet the boat was already gone. Here's where it gets super weird. This boat was virtually unsinkable. Not only did they have life jackets and lifeboats on board, but the boat had a special flotation device installed in it. This made it basically unsinkable. So even if the boat started filling with water, part of it would still be sticking out of the water, so the Coast Guard would be able to see it. And also, they had flare guns on board with them, so if something serious started to happen, they could have set those off. They didn't. The boat and the 2 friends on board just disappeared without a trace, and to this day have never been found. Starting off this countdown, we have the Violent Whirlpool. Located in Scotland, the Corrigium Maelstrom is a permanent, powerful vortex. In fact, this is said to be the 3rd strongest in the world, and depending on the weather conditions, this thing can get pretty deadly. In fact, there are countless tales of ships being sucked into the whirlpool's vortex. The lucky ones will just get spun out of control, but they'll survive. Not only that, but this whirlpool can produce standing waves as high as 15 feet high. So you don't want to be anywhere near it when that happens. In our 9th spot, we have the Underwater Memorial. The Sunken Crosses of Malpeque is an underwater graveyard located in Spain. This spot commemorates a group of 16th century missionaries that were killed by pirates before being thrown into the sea. The site features 40 stone crosses at the bottom of the sea off of the coast of La Palma in the Canary Islands. The site was created in 2000. Locals created one cross for each person that was killed, and then they purposely had them sunk in their honor. So it is literally an underwater graveyard, which is cool, but it's also creepy at the same time. It is now forever a site to remember the horrors that happened to these people. Moving on to number 8, we have Jason Voorhees. Imagine you're swimming along in a lake minding your own business when all of a sudden you see Jason from Friday the 13th chained to the bottom of the lake. I don't know about you, but I would become like Michael Phelps and just speed swim my way out of that ocean. Here's the thing, there is a Jason at the bottom of a lake. Turns out that someone put a creepy statue of Jason Voorhees at the bottom of a lake in Arizona. The chains around him add a creepy touch as well. Turns out the statue was placed in Lake Pleasant in 2018 by a diver named Zachary Nagy. According to him, it took weeks upon weeks to make. When asked why he did it, he said that it is common for divers to place objects underwater, kind of to act like a marker. Apparently there's a poker table, fake skeletons, even a Christmas tree down there as well. But this one is definitely the creepiest. It must have given some of the divers quite a fright when they first swam into it. Now, Lake Pleasant Regional Park supervisors as well as local officials instructed Zachary to remove the statue. He didn't end up doing so though. But the creepiest part? When they went down there to remove it themselves, it was nowhere to be seen.